Hey everyone, before we start this new episode, if you like what we do, give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcasts. It will help get more viewers. We will be able to do more of what we love, and that's talk about animation. Thank you, and on with the show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, we've got the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And our seasonal anime veteran returns, Teresa.
Hi, everyone.
And yeah, this is part one of the winter 2022 anime preview / recap. This week, we're talking about the fantasy / isekai shows and a little bit of slice of life. So, Cameron, what's first?
Well, first off, let's just ask the question as usual. How are we feeling about this season? Are we being hopeful for what this year may bring us? Or is this another sign of things where obviously the anime industry needs to get its shenanigans together?
Well, for better for worse, we haven't had an X-Arm yet. Well, this week at least. Honestly, at worst, the shows that we're talking about today are only as bad as blah, boring, been there, done that. And only a few are really like, yes, I firmly, strongly recommend this. This one's a little more low-key.
Teresa, what about you?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I actually was watching one and I was like, did they use the same backgrounds? Are they recycling them? And then I was like, it doesn't actually change anything. So I think it's fine. I do think I'm surprised, especially by the slice of life, that the niches we're going into, fishing, they're finding new things. So that makes me hopeful. I just wish a little bit more creativity would happen on the fantasy side. But no, it's good. And nothing made me so angry I had to walk away from the TV. So that makes me hopeful.
That's good to feel. I feel like so far it's fine. This is a slower season. There's a ton of great stuff in it, but there's also a lot of mediocre stuff. And don't worry, we'll hit an X-Arm next episode. I got a few of them lined up.
Oh, joy.
So let's get started with the strongest sage with the weakest crest. This is on Crunchyroll. It's based off of the light novels and manga by Shinko Shoto. It's directed by Noriaki Akitaya, written by Hiroki Uchida, and produced by JC Staff. At birth, mages randomly acquire one of the 4 crests that represent the extent of their magical capability. Equipped with a crest specializing in creation, a man named Gaius reaches the ceiling of his potential, becoming known as the world's strongest sage. Despite his overwhelming power, he is unsatisfied with his abilities and desires to possess the mark suitable for close combat. Knowing that a person's crest is unchangeable, Gaius decides to reincarnate far into the future, hoping to alter his fate. Thousands of years later, Gaius reborns as Matthias Hildesheimer, successfully obtaining his long-coveted crest. However, he is surprised to learn that in these times, magic has vastly waned, and the techniques that were once widely used are now nothing more than just a speck of legend. Moreover, the crest that he painstakingly strived to attain is now considered the weakest, merely dubbed Crest of Failure. Nevertheless, Matthias naturally exceeds all expectations. He enrolls into the Royal Capital's Second Academy, acing every trial that comes his way. But soon after, Matthias discovers the dark truth behind humanity's downfall into magical mediocrity. Demons! As if there's ever anything else. And endeavors to remedy the consequence of his millennia-long absence once and for all. It's another isekai. I don't mean to be so dismissive of this one, but it's just another isekai power fantasy. There's a little bit of potential there for like the politics of how the magic is used in this current timeline of his, but it's just more power fantasy nonsense. He gets a small group of female characters that want to be with him. One of them is, of course, a dragon girl, and He's of course better than everyone else there, and by golly, there's just no stakes. Teresa, what do you think?
Yeah, it's okay. I'll say it's okay. If this is what you're in the mood for, this is one of the ones I would recommend if you just want to zone out. The main character is not the most interesting. This is a trend that continues. Him winning over and over again gets a little repetitive for me. As soon as the two girls showed up, Alma and Lori, I was like, oh no, is it a love triangle? They didn't even bother. They were just like, oh, we're gonna follow this guy around. I was like, okay, that's where we are. Absolutely zero romance anymore. In all the trials, he defeats like the captain. He kills demons. Nobody's even seen a demon in forever, and he's just killing them left and right. The demon fights are the most exciting parts that I like. I was like, finally a dragon when one showed up in episode 3. So it's good, but the dungeon hunting was a little boring for me. So it kind of took me up. Demon fighting took me down into the dungeon. I was like, okay, I don't care again. But I wouldn't say it's bad. The animation is serviceable. All the spelling and things like that are interesting. If you really want to see how he keeps winning over and over. But the characters are a little flat for me.
Agreed. Mike, what about you?
Oh, sorry, I fell asleep listening to that synopsis. all kidding aside, yeah, this one is just kind of par for the course. We've been doing this show we've been through a full year from 2021 to now. And yeah, this is the beginning of me just really being burnt out from the genre. Cameron and I were on a different thread on Twitter. And one thing I replied to when he critiqued isekai is, this is like one of those genres that needs to do more than, hey, I was here, now I'm here, let's go adventure. Like, you got to bring a little bit more to the table. And luckily, at least one show this season does that. This ain't it.
Yeah, it like the worst thing of the strongest sage with the weakest crest is just it's boring. You've seen this stuff before. I feel like the way to get around these boring power fantasies with isekais is that you either have to make the story really interesting, or you go the route of the faraway paladin, and the character is no stronger than like any like a major like villain of the show. So it's like there's still room to grow. But that's not really what's going on here. He's the best. There's no one who can beat him. And this show's writing is so bad, though. I hate that the biggest shock and twist of the first episode was a guy named Devilis was a demon.
That's true. I didn't even think about his name.
That is as lazy as you can get.
It just makes me miss stuff like the what was that one from the spring season from last year? The Saint's magic power is omnipotent, where it was all about like how she used her magic to help people, and then she got to have a character arc and got to meet all these cute anime guys, and they were all also diverse in their personalities and such. It just makes the good isekai stand out that much more when you get something like this.
Yeah, I mean, how can you have an arc if you've won already in the first minute of
Exactly.
I mean, that's the brilliance of One Punch Man. I hate bringing this one up so often, but it's just the perfect example of this. One Punch Man is all about the buzzkill of power fantasies. The guy is so strong he could beat everything with a punch, and he is so jaded and bored of being a superhero because of it.
He has some personality in there.
Yeah, and when there's nothing to really offer with this one, it just makes for a very boring sit. There was nothing as like outrageously maddening about it. It was just another anime that's going by the numbers, and anime can't be doing that anymore. And these production committees need to either pick more distinct isekais, or the light novel author needs to let someone else take the reins to do something interesting with it. Because you can't just keep adapting everything in sight just because people want more anime. Speaking of, let's move on to Fantasia Sango, Realms of Legends. And yes, this is based off of a video game that the US has no way to access legally. It's directed by Shunsuke Machitani. It's written by Masashi Suzuki, and it's produced at Geek Toys. The story of Genso Sangokushi Tengen Reishinki is set during the Three Kingdoms period in China, where various warlords and their armies attempt to conquer and unify the nation. The struggles of these mighty martial heroes attracts the attention of the Moryu King, the monstrous sovereign of evil spirits who wishes to prolong the conflict and destroy the human world. To oppose the evil of the Moryu King, an organization called Tengen forms anti-Moryu armies that do battle all over China. But when the 6th anti-Moryu corps is suddenly wiped out, a ragtag band of adventurers is gathered to replace them and to form the new 6th anti-Moryu corps. I apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly. It's basically the same kind of issue from our last show we talked about. It's not an isekai, so thank goodness for that. And at least its Three Kingdoms setting gives it a distinct look among other fantasy shows. Unfortunately, that's about it, because otherwise you've seen these kind of action shows pretty much back when Toonami was the cultural touchstone of where you could watch action anime, because I'm sure this would have been like the kind of show for them to watch. Granted, some of the designs would probably never fly on older time Toonami, but I'll get into that after a little bit. But yeah, I just found this one to be very generic in terms of just action fantasy shows. So Mike, what did you think?
I'll give it this. Aesthetically, it does look kind of awesome. I did like the way the main character fought with like the paintbrush and everything. That stuff was cool, but again, kind of the same problem with the last one. It is just kind of been there, done that. I wrote in my notes like a question mark next to my comment about this being another adaptation of a popular RPG, but like the fact that the US never got a port probably means this didn't do as well, and the anime is kind of like a last ditch effort to expose a Western audience. But again, not really much I can say about this that we haven't said about other shows in the genre.
And that's a shame, because I'm sure like the game is fine. I'm sure it's one of those mobile game like things, and it's not like you can't have a good mobile game adaptation. Princess Connect Redive, which has a second season this season of the anime, is one of the best and fun, like most delightful little shows that you can have. And that's all because the characters are likable and they put an actual story, and they don't just flood you with like all the different characters you can obtain, and they build a world around it and such. Fantasia Sango kind of does, but I do think it's another case of we're following the wrong character because of course we have to follow the dashing man with the sword paintbrush, which yes, I agree, that is a very cool touch. And I like the guy with the green hair who has this talking bucket thing. But the main character should be the small girl who's like part demon and can like absorb demon power and energy and such.
She was the character who I definitely had the most please go on type questions.
And unfortunately, just like a lot of shonen battle like shows, the other main female character in the group isn't all that interesting. They do go into her backstory more within the third episode, but she's there to be just kind of like the calm and collected one, not the most interesting person, while the two male characters and the young half demon girl are the only ones to get any real personality out of them. And then the person who's just like in charge of it all, listen, I get it. You want to have visually distinct characters, but maybe, just maybe, do not get the person who's very thirsty on main to design this one character. And also, they don't know how spines work. I mean, not to say there's actually any real movement, because, yeah, what a coinkydink, a character that's kind of awkwardly designed stands still for most of the time, because drawing characters with Jessica Rabbit figures is a pain in the butt to draw and animate. So, yeah, otherwise, there's just not a whole lot to this one. I wish these first two shows had a lot more to talk about, but there's just not a whole lot. And that's a shame, because they're dumping a lot of money into these projects to hopefully raise the sale numbers of like a light novel or video game or something. And well, when we don't have access to those things, you wonder why we get them. I'm sure nobody was going to watch Fantasia Songo if the game like was never going to come to us. So yeah, don't bring over things that can't stand on their own. So let's talk about another isekai. I know we were all very excited about this one. Not really, but World of Leadale. It's based off of the light novels and manga by Seas. The anime is directed by Takayuki Yanase, written by Kazuyuki Fudeyasu, and produced by Maho Films. The previously bedridden Kana Kagame finds herself in the world of her favorite VR MMORPG titled Leadale. After the life support keeping her alive fails, Dark, reincarnated in the body of her high-level character Kana. She notices that the world of Leadale is different from what she remembered playing. As she comes to learn, 200 years have passed since she last interacted with the world. However, this does not sadden Kana, as it means that a new journey awaits her, filled with exciting prospects and unfamiliar faces, all waiting to be discovered. So, was anyone a little confused about how the world building for this one worked?
Yeah.
I was completely lost. I was like, hold on. So she's dead? I was like, is she dead? Like, I don't know. I just kept thinking about it. And then I was like, it doesn't matter because they don't really talk about it ever again.
They really don't. And it's like, why does it need to be a video game? And why did it need to have this incredibly dark like setup? Like from what I remember, the show is like, oh, she's a quadriplegic. So it's like, that's sad. And then it tries to be this cutesy anime, like fantasy anime. I'm sorry, I didn't really find it all that funny or cute. But then as like the show went on, I kind of liked the introduction of the family members. I wish I kind of knew how that worked, especially within a video game, because I don't remember playing a lot of games where you could start a family and such and whatnot. But anyway, we'll get into that when we get into that. Teresa, what did you overall think about this show?
You're making it sound more exciting than it is.
I know. That's terrible.
But I would say almost this is the most boring one for me. I don't know what it was, but I was like, I wish I was playing Zelda. It was just giving me hints of it with her initial costume. And then I was like, it's not going to be that. It's going to be so boring. I was confused. I was like, is the on-world world like done and it's like evolved into its own thing? And then they don't really explain it. And they're only like, oh yeah, I was in the hospital in that coma. And I guess some things happened. She just keeps playing catch up. And I'm just like, yeah, but what happened in those two? And like, they never really get to it. They're just like, yeah, you missed a bunch. I did like the Guardian Towers. I thought that was cool. I like that they had different personalities, what I've seen in the first 3 episodes. I like that it called her a hag, but then I was like, that's kind of terrible. That shouldn't be the one thing I like in the episode, is when her Guardian Tower makes fun of her. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, and I was confused by the foster family stuff, and then they just keep telling the same joke that she's too young to have kids. How's that possible? And by the third time, in the third kid, I was like, I don't care anymore. So I will not be continuing. I'm tapping out. It's just not enough to have me keep going.
Mike, what about you?
Yeah, kind of like what I said earlier. The show does not know how to tone. The inciting incident, with the main character being in a coma and losing power, talk about dark. But then not only do they not bring that up, like the rest of the show gets almost too inappropriately comedic. I see where they're coming from, like with certain world building aspects, like the heads of the different towers. But I don't know. This one I cannot recommend to anyone.
I think what's really confusing is that like if this game world like evolved 200 years, does that mean like the game was never offline? Like did they just keep updating it like a Final Fantasy 14 style, or is it like Guild Wars or something, like where there are small updates and then like a big expansion and such?
Yeah.
It was not very clear, and it's like if you were going to introduce this really depressing like entry point of how she gets isekai'd, then like you gotta keep talking about it. You can't just I hate to bring this up as a reference point, but you can't just do what The Room does with breast cancer, where they just bring it up and then nothing ever happens for it.
Seriously.
And it's like they could have easily just made this just a fantasy show. Nobody would mind it if it was just a pure fantasy show, or like it's not even like a power fantasy isekai, even though she has like all these strong spells and what have you. At least I can respect that they're trying to do something with the mystery of just like what happened to the guardians and such that she used to be part of a guild with. And yeah, as much as I kind of like the family aspect, they definitely ran that into the ground with all of her kids having like this same joke. And when you go past the rule of 3, that's a very big problem. I don't recommend this one. So now let's talk about she professed herself the pupil of the wise man, or she professed herself the wise man's granddaughter. Content warning: there's a little child nudity in here. Oh, anime, come on. So this is one of the first of the Funimation co-productions. It's this one in Tribe 9 and Sing a Bit of Harmony, which if you saw Mike and I talk about Sing a Bit of Harmony, we recommend that one. We'll talk about Tribe 9 next time. But let's talk about the isekai one, because it's always an isekai. It's based off of the novels and manga by Hirotsugu Ryosen. The anime adaptation is directed by Keitaro Motonaga. It's written by Takamitsu Kono. The animation is produced by Studio A Cat. I wish that was a joke of what the studio was called, but it is not. So yeah, have fun with that. With a dignified veteran's body and a long white beard, Summoner Mage Dunbalf was one of the strongest players in the virtual reality online multiplayer role-playing game Arc Earth Online. Another video game. Even heralded as a one-man army. Together with the 9 wise mages and King Solomon, they formed the mage player kingdom of Alkite. But one day, Dunbalf and the other 9 wise mages suddenly go missing, leaving no trace behind. In an effort to spend his expiring credits, Dunbalf had purchased a cosmetic kit and tinkered with his character. However, he accidentally fell asleep during the customization process. This is what happens when you make character customization options way too detailed. Anyway, upon waking up, Dunbalf not only notices that the world of Arc Earth Online has become more realistic, but also discovers that he has turned into a cute girl. After reaching Alkite, he learned that it has been 30 years since he supposedly disappeared. Now tasked with finding the other missing mages by King Solomon, the avid role player proclaims his new identity as Mira, the pupil of the wise man Dunbalf, and ventures forth to prove his legacy. We have another isekai that takes place in a fantasy world that isn't actually a video game, because these light novel authors can't come up with anything more creative. Honestly, I think this one is the most confusing because it's not. We'll get into it. Teresa, what did you think?
It was okay. Yes, I think it was overly complicated at the beginning. I was like a little bit similar to the one before. I'm like, so they were gone and now they're back and some things have happened. At least it was only 30 years. So I kind of wrapped my head around that. It had more kind of humor than the other one. So I thought that was good. I like there is someone still in the game and for them to know each other and immediately off the bat, so you have some kind of connection. You're not just having someone, although in the first episode, the like wandering, no dialogue, I thought there was something wrong with the app for like a second there. And I was like, so she's not going to talk after she changed her body. And then I was like, oh, she's just going to end the episode with saying, I'm cute. I get the title of the episode now, but it took me a minute to catch that one. I do think the pacing is like decent. I do think the third episode ends with a section about looking in the mirror. It gets a little dark. Someone's sister being dead, like the dead talking to them. And I was like, that took a little bit of a left turn. Not for the main character, though. The main character is like, I don't care who I see in that mirror. I thought that was a bit weird. And I think it's interesting that the NPCs are coming alive. That's like, I'm vaguely curious to see what's going on there. So, you know, of the crop of isekai, I would say this is one of the better ones. We do have quite a lot. So maybe you might want to watch something else. But if you have time, this is one I would recommend.
Mike, what did you think?
So, fun fact, this is like the third show in a row. Well, the first of 3 shows in a row that we're talking about where part of the plot is one of the male characters inadvertently becomes a female.
So just a heads up, a few of the shows this season have a gender dysphoria aspect to them. We're not really going to dive into that aspect of the show because none of us are experts on the dysphoria of it all. So if you've experienced that before, whether it's positive or negative, be ready and beware. This is one of those shows. I'll make sure to bring it up whenever another show like has that as a character element to the story.
That being said, I watched the dub and, you know, honestly, this is like the only way that this show was palatable, in my opinion, because otherwise it is the same problem we've run into a couple times already where we're inside a VR MMORPG instead of just a traditional fantasy setting, when this time it's even worse because I don't think we ever see the real world. And plus, we got to talk about the jank.
Okay, so this show uses a lot of CGI, and it's in a world, and it's one of those fantasy worlds where there's still modern technology, but there's a heavy emphasis on the fantasy aspects. And a lot of the monster fights that you will see and a lot of the like summoning spells use CGI, and it just never looks good.
Nope.
Oh my goodness, it looks awful. Not the worst this season. We'll get to you, Rusted Armors. We'll get to you. But yeah, sorry.
I think the best element is kind of the personality of the characters. At least they have a little bit more going for them. I wish they would have leaned a little bit more into like the meta aspect of things. The reason you set an isekai specifically in a video game is so that you have the license to include more pop culture references. And while our main character before the transformation is heavily inspired by Tolkien, they only graze at that. They don't really have fun with like the meta aspect. And I know it's not fair to compare every isekai to Konosuba, but like that show knew what it wanted to be.
The problem with this show is that it has a weird kind of tone to it. Not that like it's happy, then it's really dark. I mean, it does get kind of dark at points, but it's more the fact that everyone is aware it's a video game at points, but then it's very inconsistent with how they bring it up. And like the main characters is like, you need to call me by my character's name. And person who's playing King Solomon's just like, okay, fine. great wise man Dunbalf. There, you happy? No. And it's just another power fantasy. Oh gosh, I was so bored by the fights because, of course, the main character is going to know and use all the strongest spells to kill the evil bad guys sooner. And then there are no stakes with these fights because this is what happens when you don't balance out a power fantasy or you don't have fun with the main character or anything like that. Like in Konosuba, one character knows like the most destructive fire spell known to that world's magic lore, but can only use it once a day. And that's the only spell that character knows. There's not a whole lot that I cared for this one. I think the dub was actually pretty solid. I really liked the voice cast that they got. I guess it's just like 30 years passed. So did 30 years in real life pass? Or is it just like, 30 years in a video game? Like they just had another expansion and what have you. Like how the original Final Fantasy 14, which was such a disaster on release, basically got retconned, but also kind of woven into the reborn, like a realm reborn when Final Fantasy 14 was relaunched. They basically nuked the old world of Final Fantasy 14 and then made a new one and integrated it within its story. So I'm just kind of wondering how does this work? And I think that's why I don't care much for when it's a video game. Just make your own fantasy world. And they take a lot of time to like repetitively explain everything. And I like the idea of the guild adventurers that come along with our main character, except for the green-haired girl who is, I guess we kind of have to start getting like used to not using that trope where she becomes super hyper obsessive like that, because I don't know, I never found that trope funny.
Me neither.
But otherwise it's decently made, the CGI notwithstanding. And I do really like that last third of the first episode where it says all visual storytelling of our main character being reborn and realizing what happened, and how it's all just the music and the visuals telling the story. And I wish there was a little more of that. I thought that was a very interesting directing decision. Granted, I'm not fond of the fact that they still have moments where they give her fan service moments, and it's like, this is like a 12-year-old kid. I'm gonna call the cops. I know anime is a young person's game and this is obviously meant for 13-year-olds and such, but not everyone is going to be a teenager that watches anime. It's fine. I don't think it's the best of the Funimation co-productions, but if you have to watch an isekai this season, I'd recommend one that we'll talk about very soon. But this one's not the worst. It's at least more interesting to talk about than The Strongest Sage and what have you.
Yeah, I like it's a little girl kind of proving them wrong in the first episode, or it was really the second episode.
Yeah.
And like showing power, like that little gimmick was fun. That is a lot better done than the Leodale one, but I assume if you keep going, it might get a bit old.
Again, that's the problem when you don't have a arc for the power fantasy characters and such. Actually, the one we're going to talk about next is this one. Life with an Ordinary Guy Who Reincarnated into a Total Fantasy Knockout. Content warning, gender dysphoria is a pretty major part of this one also for one of the characters, so be wary walking into it. This comedy fantasy is based on the manga by Yu Tsurusaki. It's directed by Sayaka Yamai. It's written by Toshimitsu Takeuchi and produced by Oriental Light and Magic. The Pokemon, the Odd Taxi, and the Komi Can't Communicate studio. A dull old man, I guess define old man in anime. I guess someone in their 30s. And his handsome best friend were summoned to another world by a naked goddess. However, because of the goddess's mischief, he has turned into a peerless, beautiful girl. To get back his body, he had to go on a journey with his best friend to defeat the Demon King, an old man that became a beautiful girl and a handsome old man. Let the madness-filled rom-com journey into another world begin. This one makes it sound a lot more joyful than it is, except for the fact that our two main characters get transported into a fantasy world like after a night of drinking, and when you're the one who's always getting all the hot girls' attentions, I don't want to. I want to be you. It's not fair. I want to be a girl, and my life would be easier. Then the goddesses is like, hey there, I'm gonna take you to a fantasy world and make all your dreams come true. And then the two are just like, who the hell are you? Are you just like a hologram? Are you just fake? Just get out of here. You're annoying. We're like having a moment here. And then the goddess gets so fed up with them. It's more like a punishment than like your fantasies will come true.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that aspect. But and then she's just like, okay, so to get back to normal and all that jazz, you got to go beat the Demon King. Oh, and since y'all were punks to me, I turned your friend into a hot anime girl, and I put a love curse on you two. So bye-bye. You deal with it. And Teresa, what did you think about this one?
I thought it was funny. It did make me laugh. Sometimes it was a little bit, I wouldn't say even fully offensive. It's just it's the fact that like they're exploring the love between two friends, but through the use of love spells, and they're forcing one friend to be attractive, even though unconsciously maybe that's the storyline, that they were always kind of in love with each other. More boy love, I'm always here for that. But now they've made it weird because they made one really hot, but she's so hot that she's like making villages get destroyed. So it was just kind of like really intense, really fast, but it was very hilarious. I do like how when someone's under the spell, they show like literally the word charm above their head. I thought that was like pretty funny. I do like that they're the running joke of the friend that's not transformed. I can't remember his name at the moment. He's just like, I don't like women. That's just the thing. And he's like, you like to say that out loud. You're fine with that? And he's like, totally fine with that. I thought that was pretty hilarious. The elven lady was pretty funny. They're dueling beauties, and the cliffhanger with the elven lady being stolen into the forest definitely made me want to continue. So I'm wondering if there's other incarnated people, because the goddess is being brought up in conversation by the elves. It's got me wondering who she's done this to before. So I'm curious to see where it's going.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of that. The elements to this show. I was not fully enthralled with the first episode. I was like, I don't know, how are they going to handle this? But then as the show went on, I was just like, okay, I'm very down with how they're handling this. Mike, what did you think?
So I don't think it's fair to call it a course correction, how they handle episodes 2 and 3, because again, I haven't read the manga, so I don't know how faithful an adaptation this is. But like, if you're not sold on episode 1, because admittedly it is a little rough around the edges, episodes 2 and 3 are some of the funniest isekai episodes of anything I've seen, at least since we started this podcast. Like the callbacks to the first episode in episode 3, when we discover who the hell that demon bear thing is, and like
Yeah, that is pretty funny.
Yeah, the girl and I guess her sisters who, belong to that forest, get all rightfully pissed off. But this show was something that we desperately needed this season, something just ridiculous. And I also love how the goddess is like basically like a humanoid monkey's paw, with like listening to, I think it was Hinata's drunken rants.
Yeah.
Of course, because she is petty as all hell, she takes everything literally and basically makes their life a living hell. But I'm pretty sure we can all kind of guess what the end game is for this show. But as long as the characters stay engaging and the jokes keep coming at you, I can very comfortably recommend this one.
Yeah, this show is wickedly funny. I found myself laughing so many times. Like, I love when they're encountering the bandits in the second episode and all the bandits fall for the lead, and how like our lead doesn't even lift a finger, and all the bandits end up like killing one another because they were charmed. And just how they visually show that off, and just the fact that they're willing to like go off model for comedic effect is so welcome here. I think if this show did not lean on its comedy so much, that it wouldn't have worked. And I think that's also I think its focus on comedy is its strongest point. And I love how the other guy is just like how he deals with the bandits at the bandit camp, how he just tosses them and they just like stick in the ground like a ostrich head going in. And yeah, by the third episode, when you realize like the big bear bunny Lovecraftian monster thing was actually the forest deity. And the old man's just like, oh, so you killed the forest spirit. And the Tsukasa is like, oh, geez, were y'all worshiping this one? And the old man's like, oh, no, nobody, you don't have to worry about it. We weren't worshiping it. And then the elves come in and they're like, okay, who the hell burned down our forest and killed our forest deity? And you see the main characters in the background, like in that weird portal door. They're just kind of standing there. And then they just slowly move back into the door. They're like, okay, we may have screwed up a little. And oh, it's just so much fun to watch. There are constant laughs. I got to the most recent episode, and they're trying to get some weaponry and like gear to take with them on their quest. And Tsukasa doesn't want Hinata to use charm curse on anyone because, you know, we saw what happened with the bandits. And they go into this item shop, and at first the store owner is just like, hey, I'll give you this thing that will keep people from like looking at Hinata, but it's going to cost 300 gold pieces. And then the two main characters just leave. They're like, no, we're good, bye. Because throughout this time in the town, Hinata's been wearing a paper bag.
Oh, yeah.
And then when Hinata goes back in, no paper bag, Hinata's like, hey, can you make that cheaper? The store owner's like, I will give you everything. Like, here's the deed to the store. And then Hinata's like, no, you don't need to do that. And he's just like, what else could you want? Like, do you want weapons, money, or anything? And then we meet probably one of the funniest aspects of the show. I can't wait for y'all to get to this fourth episode, because you do meet like the swordsman that you see in the opening, the one who looks like the Kirito Sword Art Online archetype.
Oh, nice.
He spoilers, he was brought into this world by the goddess. So but the joke, his main joke for the first episode is that like he threw away his old name, you know, metaphorically speaking, and his name is Schwartz von Liechtenstein Lohengram. And the main characters are like, okay, can you repeat that? Your name is way too long for its own good. And then he gets back into like, it's like he's redoing a scene where he's like, he had like threw the cloak off. So then like after they call him out on his long name, he puts it back on, turns around again. And then it's like, it is I, Schwartz von Liechtenstein Lohengram. And the main characters are like, why the hell did he do that? Oh, it's so funny. And I like the dynamic between our two characters. I think they handle it like the dilemma that they are in very well. And they're very expressive characters. This was a surprise gem for me. And I'm so happy that it turned out pretty well. Though I understand that some of the plot elements do not, if some people respond very negatively to them. This anime is not going to be for everyone, but if you are down for its more comedic approach to the isekai genre, you will, I think, have a good time with this one. But now we must go to, I don't know why this one was labeled fantasy, but since we don't have a comedy category, its second genre category on my anime list put it in fantasy, even though it's technically a more modern time period thing. The next one we're going to talk about is Miss Koroitsu from the Monster Development Department, which is on Crunchyroll, just like our last show. It's based off of the manga by Hiroaki Mizuno. It's directed by Hisashi Saito, written by Katsuhiko Takayama, and produced by Quad. Toka Koroizu is a research assistant who belongs to the Monster Development Department of the evil organization Agatsia. However, the enemy she has to fight right now isn't the heroes of justice, but her boss. So long justice exists, evil too will exist. This is the story of those who fight secretly in the shadows of justice and evil's confrontations. So essentially, with that bare bones description of the story, it's essentially like you've seen like a tokusatsu or like a Power Rangers show. And this is a workplace comedy following the character among the bad guys who's always in charge of creating monsters. And they basically match that with the constant stress and notorious working conditions of working at a giant corporate office. So that means they're having to constantly like pitch monsters and then get all the nitpicks and last minute changes while working on a tight schedule and unfortunate crunch time to get the monster made for the week so the hero has someone to fight. Content warning, this also has a bit of gender dysphoria with one of its characters. We'll mention it, but we won't go into depth of how it's handled. Teresa, what did you think about this one?
I like this one. This is one of my favorites. I thought it was funny. I like the character designs. I just think it's funny that there's this huge, big secret society with like monsters going around, but like it's kind of kept secret and they have all these front companies and I'm like, well done. I do love the kind of setup, a little bit of spoiler, that our evil lead is secretly getting food in the 24-hour shop from the hero, the blader. And I just think it's so funny that they're like inspiring each other and they don't even know it. I thought that was the best part, especially the one where he's like, you really solved something. She's like, solved what? So I thought that was cute. I do love all of the power. Like as soon as the opening, guys, I was like, this is a throwback. Like, what is happening here? And it's really metal guitar. I thought that was fun. So I like the throwback nods and I thought it was really fun. And I just like how they're just collecting monsters that could be really awesome if they would stop cutting their budget and having too many cooks in the kitchen. And the leader of the society is basically seems like a little girl and she keeps kind of saying everything needs to be cute, but it also needs to be a monster. So that's confusing, but I definitely really enjoyed it and I want to keep watching it.
Yeah, this one was a real surprise. I was really happy about it, which is interesting because in the spring season, we're getting another tokusatsu inspired romance comedy anime of like love after the world domination, where one of the villains of this villain organization falls in love with the leader of the Power Rangers and they date on the side, which is interesting because you kind of wonder, do these two shows have like, are they in the same universe and such? It would be kind of interesting to see if you could somehow fit both of those shows in, but we'll have to talk about that one show when in the spring season. Mike, what did you think about this show?
Oh, I had a blast with this one. The best way I can describe this is it's like Inside Job meets Parks and Rec, The Office, and of course you sprinkle in the flavor of tokusatsu and magical girl, all of that wonderful stuff. I've realized as we keep like discussing seasonal anime that the ones that I seem to like the most are the ones that are more on the sillier side of things. And this show gets really silly, especially with one of the monsters who's basically just like a giant robot chicken. He has a great moment in third episode that I really got a kick out of. But the other thing I really liked is the kind of dating Catwoman aspect of like the head of the monster development and Blader kind of forming a sort of romance. I thought, I don't know if that's really going to go anywhere, but so far I kind of like what I see with that.
Yeah, that one's really sweet. This story has a lot of very distinct elements that helps make it a very fun business comedy. Like I love how actually supportive one of the heads, like two heads of the big company, Magistus, the one with the helmet and such, and how he's just like, he looks like he's the one who fights the main hero and such at the end of every like Power Ranger season. But he cares about his employees and he's like when he realizes how stressed out they were in the first episode, he goes down there and he's just like, let me tell you what I thought about your presentation. I didn't know y'all were stressed out. Like, y'all need to tell me this. If you need more time, you got to let me know. And
Exactly.
he's super helpful. And it's just like, oh my gosh, when a supervillain organization has better workplace conditions than stuff in real life, you know you've messed up. And yeah, the constant work stress of making a new monster every week is hilarious. And it also kind of lampshades the fact that a lot of like Kamen Rider and Power Ranger monsters come off as like very last minute design choices. Like I remember this one from Kamen Rider Super 1. I think that was the series before Kamen Rider Black, which we didn't get a lot of these Kamen Rider shows in the US, but we did get Masked Rider, which was based off of Kamen Rider Black RX, the sequel series. Anyway, one of the monsters of the week in Kamen Rider Super 1 was basically based off of a bar of soap. So yeah, like, and seeing the like, here is the monster of the week, and it's like a guy in a Loch Ness monster outfit with a sword, and you can see that face sticking out of it, and they're just like, why not, like, why is it just a guy in a suit? That's so uncreative. Why not make it a girl? And then like to play off of the pun name of it all.
I love the derpy face of the Loch Ness costume.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that scene from The Mitchells versus the Machines where they go to the dinosaur exhibit and the dinosaur just has like a blank stare.
Oh yeah, that part's great. And I love the fact that I can relate to this on some level of just like how it's like, we're going to make this big wolf villain that's going to kill Blader. And then, of course, at the very last minute, the leader of the whole organization comes in and it's just like, can you make it a cute wolf thing? And this is the part where I've heard mostly positive things of how they handle it, but I'm not going to go into it about Wolf. I do like the characters. I think the dynamics are very fun. And in the 4th episode, Wolf and the leader of the organization have a fun time in the amusement parks, but they're there for the sake of like, oh, we're here to make sure everything's going well, even though all they do is just ride around in the rides. And I do love how they handle the question of what happens if a monster doesn't beat Blader. They just shuffle them around to other parts of their like front companies and such, like seeing what's his name, the Thunder Chicken, Cannon Thunderbird, how he's just a mascot for the amusement park, and I really liked him. I thought that was very cute. But man, it like, you hear this all the time with productions of just like anything like TV and movies, where it's like a bunch of execs come in and are like, well, give this more action, and it's just like, no, don't, no. Like, you don't know what you're talking about
before.
Or like, I think my favorite though of the reoccurring gags is Hydra, how it's just like, she's supposed to have 8 dragon heads that spit venom, but due to budgetary reasons, she can only have 2 heads. And then they keep going like Hydra 1, Hydra 2, Hydra 3. And the one constant thing throughout the whole thing is she can still not shoot venom because of budgetary reasons and time. And then you get a little like sub story of like the people who get hired on to be random villain grunts and such. And I think that's kind of interesting with like the characters of Karen Mizuki and Heiki Matsuyama. I'm curious to see what they do with that, because so far they haven't done a whole lot with it. But yeah, if you love like tokusatsu stuff, there's a lot of this here. It's basically a love letter to it. And I'm assuming when they say, oh, these heroes existed, I'm assuming that they're either making non-copyright references to like actual tokusatsu heroes, because man, when like Power Rangers and Kamen Rider blew up, there were like 20 to 30 to like 50 different tokusatsu superhero shows. It was wild. And this show is just a great time. It's a real gem of the season. And a season that was just like, you can kind of feel bored and burned out by it. But then you get to a show like this and it's like, oh, that's sweet. I like this one.
Yeah.
We highly recommend it. So now we go on to The Genius Prince's Guide to Raising a Nation Out of Debt, which is on Funimation. And by the way, this is not the same show as The Realist Hero. Apparently, some people got confused or misunderstood that they thought it was, but it's not. They just happen to have very similar lead male designs. But that's it. One's an isekai that's kind of boring, but we'll get into that. So The Realist Hero is based off of the light novels and manga by Toru Tuba. It's directed by Makoto Tamagawa. It's written by our favorite reoccurring writer, Deko Akao, aka Hitomi Miyano. How many times are we going to see this one writer every single season? And it's produced by Yokohama Animation Laboratory. The king of Natra has fallen ill, leaving the only hope for his kingdom to his son, Prince Wine Selema Arbalist. Known to be capable and wise, he is the perfect candidate to become the Prince Regent. However, if the prince has anything to say about the matter, he would rather sell off the kingdom of Natra to the highest bidder. Since he wields the authority of the throne, no one can stop Wine from auctioning off the country and using the profits to retire in comfort. All he needs to do is raise the value of the small kingdom to maximize his gains. But whether Wine's grand plan will succeed remains to be seen, as his wit often surpasses even his own expectations, much to the benefit of the oblivious citizens of Natra. If you remember during our summer recap when we talked about Realist Hero and how we were all extremely bored by it, if it gets better, cool. And if you like it, awesome. But we were not enthused by it. I was hoping that this was the show that The Realist Hero was, but we just had to wait 2 seasons to get it. Teresa, what did you think?
Okay, I'll give it. It's better than Realist Hero. I think I'm just not a military strategy show person, but the parts that aren't super deep military strategy, I really liked. So if that's your bag, I would recommend it. I did think it was funny. In the first episode, both the sides of the armies had their little like Braveheart speech, and then our prince was like, yeah, I just gave that speech, we'll see what happens. So he's a little bit nihilistic and self-deprecating, and I think it's a funny gag that the army just keeps winning even though he thinks that they're going to go terribly wrong. So I like that kind of angle on the story. I kind of wish his heart, Ninim, I think I would rather see a story about her, but I do think it's really sweet, their friendship, and that explanation in episode 3 when they're talking about marrying kingdoms together and things like that. And the little princess is like, why aren't you marrying my brother? And I thought it was cute, her explanation, but it was far too many military maps for my liking. And I'm pretty sure that was CGI when they're showing kind of the playing boards and things like that. It just took me right out.
No, I understand. This is a lot of the humor gets kind of lost in the fact that the main hook of this show is that this prince is using his genius intellect and wiseness to not really make the kingdom better for any actual understandable reason, like for the people. He wants to raise it enough to where it's like once he can sell it off, he can just go off to some island or somewhere to retire. It reminds me of like if you like I elevator pitched this show to a few people and I had to make sure to ask them if they've watched Parks and Rec first, because I said like it's like if Ron Swanson was in charge of all of Pawnee and then he decided just to sell the whole city off and then just go away to his cabin. And that's how I kind of feel with this show. But Mike, what do you think about the show?
How you described it is pretty perfect. I think that was the missing piece from Realist Hero. They didn't really do a good job at like giving our main character a character, whereas here, Prince Wine, he's about as narcissistic as someone like Daffy Duck or Darkwing Duck. The comedy mostly lies in sort of like the dissonance between his selfishness versus the actual good that he's doing for his kingdom. All of that stuff I really enjoyed. And then we get to, episodes 2 and 3 where we're introduced to some more characters who really do a nice job playing off of Wine and his outgoing personality.
Yeah, no, a lot of the jokes are at the expense of our prince here because he puts on a facade and she's the only one who knows he's BSing about when everyone's just like, man, our prince is great. He'll save our nation for sure. And then they leave, and then he's just like, ugh, finally they're gone. No, I don't want to do this. And then she's just like, shut up. Like she gives him no chill. And yeah, a lot of the jokes so far have revolved around him being like, oh, this is a terrible battle plan, but I'll make sure our armies feel very like optimistic and hopeful about it. And then he keeps winning. And it's great that they're like, ha, we'll take this mine and that'll be impossible. And all the generals are like, oh no, we can't do that. That's a terrible strategy. And he's just like, yeah, in his head, he's like, yeah, we'll do this and then we'll sue for peace and then I'll sell off the kingdom. Easy as that. And then the generals are like, what a great strategy. And he's like, wait, what?
I thought I was kidding.
And then they find out that the mine has like nothing of worth to it. So it's just like it's a hollow victory in some ways in that regard, where he's like, well, at least we'll get money out of it. And then the head of the mine is like, about that. But I do love the bond between our main characters. I think our characters are actually very likable. I'm sure that he's going to be like, oh, I'm going to change my mind by the end of this show, but we'll have to see how that goes. It's going to be 12 episodes. So, and I like that, like, he was willing to like ditch the strategy to protect our other lead's honor, because he was just like, okay, so that was from the guy, like the head of your army? Yeah. Okay, then. And then he just brutally murders him. I was a little amazed at how violent this show got at points. I will say that while a lot of the jokes are very humorous, there are a few sexually harassy jokes that are in like the second and third episode, which I'm disappointed that they still think that's funny stuff, because it's like the rest of the show is not like that. So
yeah, there were some boob jokes.
Yeah, I have nothing else to add to that. It was just a little disappointing to see those kind of jokes pop up. But otherwise, I really liked this show. And the problem with the realist hero is that he was a very condescending, smug son of a gun, where he's like, why didn't y'all think about doing this? Well, it's like what Haley said, where it's just like he's talking down to everyone in very like obviously easily solvable situations. And that's not fun to watch. Again, if it gets better, fine. But with the Genius Prince, it's just very funny and very entertaining, and they do a good job with building up the world and the character dynamics. I haven't seen the most recent episode, but I'm definitely going to see what happens. But that is our look at the fantasy / isekai section of the season. And we must dive into Slice of Life with what might be the worst anime of the season so far. So our first one is called Police in a Pod. Content warnings. It's about cops. The second episode is about sexual abuse. And it's pretty much propaganda. This show is based off of the manga by ex-police officer turned manga author Miko Yasu. The anime is directed by Yuzo Sato, written by Ryonosuke Kingetsu, and produced by Studio Madhouse. After graduating from high school, Mai Kawaii's top priority was to find a job with a stable income to avoid turning out like her father. However, despite having taken a variety of civil service exams, she was faced with a harsh reality. Nearly every institute denied her entry. The only place that accepted her was a police academy, which she reluctantly joined. Oh, that's fun. Even now that she is an actual police officer, the world continues to be cruel to Mai due to her profession. She unexpectedly receives constant criticism from disgruntled citizens. Disheartened by the hostile treatment, she decides to submit a letter of resignation after just a few months of employment. But on the same day Mai chooses to quit, she meets Saiko Fuji, the former ace of the Criminal Affairs Division who was assigned as her new instructor. Finding her new co-worker to be enchanting, Mai delays leaving and gives her uninspired job a second chance. Okay. Where to start? Because this one's kind of loaded to talk about. Teresa, what did you think?
I think it was a mistake. I watched this one first. Uh, I was like, this is not what I thought was going to happen. It wasn't terrible. I didn't mind the opening sequence. I was like, oh, maybe it'll surprise me. And then it started getting into the story, and I'm just kind of like, I don't care about any of this. I thought it was a little weird to focus on, just have a series itself on police. That's not really a police rah atmosphere. And usually, like actual, shows were like talking about, like The Wire, like the police are going through it or something. Like maybe I can get behind that when you're showing that they're, screw ups or whatever. But this is more like, oh, they're just trying to make it in the workplace. Oh, and I'm like, no, I don't want to see that. I do want something to happen between the lady cops. If I had more patience and there was less anime, maybe I would give it another episode to see what's going on, but I'm not hopeful on that front. But I do like that there's a little undercurrent of maybe something going on with the girls making eyes at each other, but it's a little bit, it's just not fun. It seems like a Dare after school special gone wrong.
That's a perfect description.
Where I was like,
very
is
apt.
there a lesson? I don't think there is. And in the first episode, the thief is giving tips to the rookie, and I was like, this is all upside down. So I'd rather just watch SVU or something again. I'm not into this cop show.
I was just kind of thinking, like, I could be watching your Under Arrest, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or Pat Labor more than
much better.
Yeah, than this. And Pat Labor was like my first anime that I've ever watched, so I have a very special connection to it. Even though it's just like, let's give the police force giant mechs. Let's see what happens there. Mike, what did you think?
I did not have fun watching this one at all. I think one of the biggest problems is the mangaka is way too close to the source material. So whether it was intended or not, this is propaganda. Now, maybe it's more culturally acceptable in Japan to have a show like this, given current events and how, like, at least how, like, the police are viewed in the States. There's just no way I feel comfortable recommending this one at all. And that's even despite the fact that, refreshingly, the kind of sort of romance is not like, it's not overly sexualized. Like, the two female leads are dressed like respectfully. So that's one thing to appreciate, but it is the hay in the needle stack.
Yeah, with the timing and the current climate within the US of how these shows are like this, about like how police are portrayed and like how they are in the real world. And to be clear, there is going to be police corruption everywhere you go. It just seems like there is definitely something, there's like a different tone to this one with how it is going on, about how there's a lot of sexism and harassment and just nonsense with working as a police officer in Japan. And I'm sure there is. Like, me not liking this show does not deny the fact that there's corruption and issues within how the police are formed and united and such. I do like that the characters are not fan service material. They don't try to sexualize the outfits at all. It's all very grounded, and it takes itself a little too seriously as a show that is trying to be a comedy.
Yeah, it's not funny.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem, though. If you're going to be a comedy, you gotta be funny. I think I laughed once, but it wasn't like a huge hearty laugh like in the liking. It's not like Koroitsu of the Monster Development Department or Life of an Ordinary Guy who reincarnated into a total fantasy knockout. I wasn't like head over heels like laughing. I was just kind of like, Okay. Was there a way they could have made this work that didn't come off like so, like instead of getting like a Brooklyn Nine-Nine, we got like a Blue Bloods
Yeah.
or like an NCIS? Is there a way we could have worked?
I'll say this, and I kind of brought it up earlier. Maybe if the writer wasn't as close to the material, like
Sure.
maybe if the police were viewed with a more critical eye, or I don't know, maybe doing a propaganda anime is just DOA from the start.
I think it needs more humor for it to work at all. Otherwise, it's like a non-starter. Maybe you could make it like a little bit sweet if it was way more focused on the rookie. But I feel like the older Fuji like lady cop is just teaching the rookie cop to be mean, which is not going to get you any compassion here. And she's like, yeah, like don't talk about cops like that to her dad like immediately. And I'm like, that's not what we want. We want you to be real people and understanding and, obviously protect us, but we don't want you to go drunk on power. So I feel like it would have to be like, I don't know, almost like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt if she wanted to be a police officer and just like totally sheltered and like coming into the world and like understanding things. Sure, maybe someone, not me, I'm not that target audience, could get behind that in like a sweet way, but that would be the only non-comedy way where I want the cops to be made fun of. I'm sorry.
No, I think that is the problem. It's not funny. They don't talk about the absurdity of the job, I guess. Or it's like they don't talk down to the fact that like, hey, don't be emotionless monsters ready to get violent on the flip of a dime or whatever. And it just doesn't know how to handle its tone. That second episode
was all over the place.
It was so uncomfortable to sit through that second episode, just how it was about sexual abuse and this runaway teenager who got, abused by her dad. And then it ends on a joke of the rookie cop getting a Love Hotel gift card and a condom. It's like, anime? You don't do stuff like that. In a lot of ways, I was kind of curious about how this show would unfold. I don't know if I'd call it the worst anime of the season, not when we have Rusted Armor and such, but it's in the top 5 worst of the season so far. And it's a shame because it's another anime with young adults and dealing with work life. And you could see them like if they focused more on their personal lives or something like that.
I think maybe that's it. Maybe if their occupation was simply like a backdrop and it really was just like focusing on the romance between the two leads. But again, there's no real easy way to adapt something like this.
I wish it was a little more critical instead of just being like, oh yeah, there's workplace nonsense within the police force. It's like, okay, cool. What you gonna do about it? What should they do about it? And then it's just like, well, these guys are a bunch of sexist, smelly men, but they're good people. And it's like, well, how about you tell them not to be sexist idiots? You can do that, right?
Yeah, I just tuned out on that whole. I was like, I don't know what you're trying to get at in that episode.
Its morals are mixed and its point is mixed. Anyway, let's move on. So let's go to the other fairly uncomfortable one to talk about. And one of 3 Cloverworks anime. Good Lord, Cloverworks. You think maybe after what happened with Wonder Egg Priority and The Promised Neverland Season 2, you would not try to make 3 shows for one season? And who knows, maybe it's a production committee thing and they just took on too much, but still. Anyway, let's talk about Akebi's Sailor Uniform. This one's on Funimation, it's on Crunchyroll, and it's on Verve. Well, which is, has Crunchyroll. Content warning: foot fetish and voyeuristic lingering on middle school girls. Oh, anime. There's a reason why you will never become more popular. It's based off of the manga by Hiro. It's directed by Miyuki Kuroki. It's written by Rino Yamazaki. And again, Cloverworks is the one producing it. Ever since she was young, Komichi Akebi has always adored sailor uniforms. even going so far as to ask her mother to sew one if she succeeds in getting into her mother's alma mater, Roll by Academy. And thus, when she gets accepted into the prestigious school, Komichi is ecstatic. However, much to her surprise, the middle school no longer uses sailor uniforms as its dress code, making Komichi stand out from her schoolmates. Despite this, Komichi is granted permission to continue wearing the traditional attire. With renewed confidence, Komichi meets fascinating classmates as they experience school life together under the colorful shower of blossoming prospects. An exciting tomorrow awaits them. Okay, Teresa, what did you think?
And this was the second one that I watched, and I was like, oh no. It wasn't that bad. I thought the animation was cute at the beginning, and the opening sequence, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a little darling thing. I loved all the landscapes. She lives in the beautiful countryside. I'm like, how long is she hiking to school? I was a little concerned for her, but I loved the the lushness of it and the coloring. And then there was just too much bath time in the first episode, and I'm like, isn't she supposed to be in middle school? This is a little weird. And I feel like they were trying to go and be artsy with the bath time. But I'm like, at the end of the day, why is she and her sister in the bath naked for a very long extended scene that isn't just like, we're about to have dinner? They could have that conversation that they had about, is she excited about school or nervous, and what's she going to wear? Literally with clothes on. There was just no reason for it. And then they kind of do it again. And I get the montage with the uniform. I thought that actually was, I was like, no, don't turn it off yet. I thought the uniform was very cute, and that whole buildup and that montage and her going to school and then finding out that her uniform was not the dress code anymore. I thought that premise was nice. I liked that she was building the friendships. It's a little on the boring side, episode 2 and 3, but I was already kind of on the edge of not wanting to watch it with the bath time. So it's going to be not one for me. And they just need to stop doing this in anime, please.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a moment. Mike, what did you think?
Okay, disclaimer, I watched the dub, and as of this recording, there were only 2 episodes available. If I'm being completely honest, this was enough for me. Look, I get it. Not every anime is going to appeal to everyone, especially slice of life, because fairly or not, it does kind of have the reputation, at least for people with very narrow tastes, of being the anime where nothing ever happens. And I don't like that as a blanket criticism. That being said, this show is, on top of the foot fetish and 2 unnecessary bat scenes, this show is just kind of shallow. Like, all of this buildup comes from, I want to wear a sailor uniform to school. Okay, I understand anime is the reason for that continuing, but and then sure, episode 2 is about Akabi making friends, and I guess in a more well-written show, this would have even been enough. Although, if you want that, just watch Komi Can't Communicate, which is amazing.
By the way, isn't it just a weird coincidence that we get 2 anime within a span of a season? With fall 2021 having Komi Can't Communicate, which is all about her wanting to make friends, and then we get this one in this season.
Yeah, but the difference between these shows is that Komi Can't Communicate is great, full of personality, even with a character who basically mimes at a good chunk of the pilot. This has none of the charm outside of the admittedly incredible animation. We can criticize Cloverworks' work ethic for spreading their resources too thin, but the work itself is often very pleasant to the eyes. Too bad it's wasted on this. So no, I do not recommend Akabi's sailor uniform.
Yeah, let's talk about the visuals for a moment. This is some of Cloverworks' most visually stunning animation. This show looks great. It's probably the best looking show on a visual level, on a production values level. It just looks amazing. It almost looks film quality. It's like how Jobless Reincarnation continued to have just the most amazing production values. And too bad it also has the same issue as Jobless Reincarnation, where everything else does not fully support the amazing visuals. I know Jobless Reincarnation gets better. Don't at us. It's like there wasn't really a problem per se with it being just another school life anime. KyoAni made like money over fist making school life anime with stuff like K-On! And Tamako Market and Tamako Love Story. You'd think that like that would be so easy, but apparently Naoko Yamada just knows how to make these shows really work. But then it's just like the problem is the anime is obviously a school life, slice of life anime. The cinematography is not. I think if you read the Anime News Network review of episode 3, comment from the critic hits the nail on the head. Because if you took out the creepy voyeuristic lingering of it all, it's just another slice of life, cutesy school day anime. And that's not a problem. Yeah, the fact that it focuses so much on feet and the legs and just how the clothes fall off their bodies. It's like, okay, this is creepy as hell. I don't want to watch this. Why is all this amazing animation going towards these shots of feet? Or like when she walks into the classroom and the first thing she sees is a girl clipping her nails and then sniffing her nail clipper.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It was weird. I was like, what?
What's so maddening about it is when you get to episode 3, it slowly starts to kind of dive into the character dynamics and just like how these girls are like discovering themselves and who they are and what they want to do with life. It's very sweet, and it's interesting to see them all react differently to Akebi's super pop personality, like, and how she's just kind of like a beacon of optimism and joy. And then they show like the little sister slapping Akebi on the bum. And it's like, okay, didn't need to see that. It's a real disappointment. I think really the only reason this isn't the worst one is because it just looks amazing.
Yeah, that's the equalizer for this and Police in a Pod.
It's like, I wish it took maybe a more comedic take on making friends or something. Like, do something like Cromartie High School or something, where the guy's like, I am going to this high school and I'm going to be amazing. Except this school is full of like the worst people ever, and I am just horrified of being here.
Yeah, I feel like the club episode could have been funnier. Like, I was kind of like, oh, there's all these clubs, and then it's just kind of like, and I picked the drama club, and that was like the arc of the episode, and I'm like, okay.
Like, it was kind of cute when like 3 different club presidents come in, because they're like, we've seen you run. Please join the soccer club. No, you must join the running club. No, you must join the swimming club, or something like that. And I will say one thing that does bug me about the visuals. Akebi has like, I don't know, something about the head shapes are really weird. Did anyone else notice that? Just like the eyes are just gigantic. And
yes, I noticed that, and I was like, I love it. Like when she was like doing the backflips or whatever in the very first episode, I was like, why are her eyes so big when we finally see her? And then
that felt very off.
And then like the sharp pointy chins, like even like when they do the side profile of their faces, it's like, something's weird about these designs.
Yeah, but I think they do it to the other girls. It's not just to her.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's like everyone suffers
and
from
I
this.
was like, why are you doing it? And then I just was like, am I just like, is this a new thing that's happening, like a new trend? And I'm like, not on the no. And I'm like, no, I don't like it.
No,
but it's not all the time. So
I
could look over it.
Yeah, no, it's a shame that this show is kind of battling with itself. I kind of referenced that it reminds me of the fall 2020 anime Adachi and Shimamura, where it's like gorgeously animated. It's a beautiful show. Someone told the cameraman to stop looking at the legs, like just move the camera up a little. So it's a shame. I was kind of curious to see what this was, because I love Cloverworks. They made Horimiya. I love that show. And then Shadow's House. That one was also really good. Apparently they're having some issues there though with how everything is being run. So hopefully, I don't know if New Deal for Animation can cross industries, but that would be nice for the anime industry to, get some of those nice changes as well.
Agreed.
So next up, we're talking about Q, which for some reason I thought was going to be a short form anime, but apparently it was not. It's based off of a video game by Liber Entertainment. It's directed by Shin Katagi. It's written by Tatsuhiko Urahata and produced by Umeda Company and Graphica. A new agency, Air Blues roster consists of voice actresses with absolutely no experience. Expecting to hone their skills and build courage at a gradual pace, the girls are taken aback when the head of their agency, Masaki Otori, announces that they will be partaking in an audition for Bloom Ball, a popular sports manga receiving an anime adaptation. Despite being all odds being stacked against them, each of the girls is now presented with a momentous chance to make their debut in the unrelenting world of voice acting. So, Mike, I know you were kind of shocked how it turned out that it's kind of an idol anime. It reminds me of that meme where there's that one astronaut looking at the Earth, and it's like, you mean that this whole time it was going to be an idol anime? And then the other the astronaut's pointing a gun at him, and it was like, always has been. Because this is based off of an idol game, which you manage voice actors, but some of them are going to become idol girls. So Teresa, what do you think?
I thought the first episode was cute. I liked, it's self-reflexive. It's showing you, behind the scenes. And then the second episode, I was like, these auditions are taking too long. Oh my gosh, just tell me who the good ones are. So it kind of dragged on. Episode 3, it got better. It's turning into an idol. Obviously, they was like, do you want to be an idol? I never said that. I want to be a voice actress. So it's kind of like they're trying to take themselves seriously, but like not. I do like, it's a show full of a bunch of girls trying to live their dreams. So like on paper, I want to like it more. I just think the execution is like a little bit too realistic of the voice acting, and I don't want to be a voice actor. So kind of the voice exercises and things like that, and those montages are just going on a little bit too long. I need something, some meat. And I know that's the point of Slice of Life, is to just dwell on this. So, I know it's culminating to something, but I don't know if this is the one for me. But if you want to see more of the voice acting, I do think it's cute. And if you love an idol anime, get ready. It's going to get hot.
I was shocked that we only had like technically one idol anime this season out of the new shows that we were talking about. Because I was just like, you mean we only get one? You sure we don't have any more?
Yeah, compared to like a year ago, it's just like boom, 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 everything. Idol.
Yeah. Mike, what did you think?
Outside of having the rug pulled from under me, I actually really liked the first 2 episodes when it was more focused on sort of the inside baseball aspect of how the sausage is made. An anime gets adapted, the audition process. I also kind of made this joke in my notes that some of these shows within a show, they kind of run the gamut between either generic sort of placeholders for things we've seen a million times before, or Boom Ball, which I genuinely am curious if there is a real world equivalent, because that show kind of sounds like fun, and I would have rather watched that than what would end up just being kind of a run-of-the-mill idol anime. And if you're a fan of idol anime, I'm not trying to yuck your yum. Like I said earlier, not every anime is going to appeal to everyone. Yeah, by the 3rd episode, I'm like, okay, I've seen enough. Maybe I'll keep going, but not quite for me.
Like, the best thing about this show is that even though it has its idol anime elements, it is a show about voice acting, and it focuses a ton of time on the intricacies of just acting and performing and auditions, and how, and this is like a real thing with the whole like, we want you to be voice actors for this idol project, and you play the idols in real life, and you'll sing and dance at concerts and such, because that happens. That's a very big thing with certain anime. And like, I think if my favorite idol made it to the Budokan, I would die, is very much that case where they got actual idols to voice the anime idol group. The moment you realize that this is based off of a idol management game is when they start introducing all the characters. It's like, oh, these 4 will be our main characters. Okay, these 5, 7, 10,
15.
15. I remember I said like there was like, let's see. Oh, so that we have 12 main characters. Oh, no, I'm sorry, silly me. 16. And they're doing a fine enough job of giving them enough personality, but there's not really a whole lot that makes some of them distinct. Some of them are a little more different than others, but then some of them have like very replaceable personalities. You wouldn't be golden if you kind of mistook one for the other. I get that they want you to be interested in this game. I don't know if we have this game that this show is based on here.
I don't think we do.
But again, Princess Connect Redive does not dump all of its characters onto you at once. It gives you a handful of them to follow, and then they have either cameos or our main characters meet the other characters that you can get within that any actual real world mobile game. I know I play the game and I like all the characters and their designs and the voice acting and such. And yeah, once you kind of get that out of the way, it's pretty solid. I wish there was a little more liveliness to it. Again, a Naoko Yamada would have maybe punched up the dialogue and character interactions. It's like they couldn't really have any fun with how the characters emoted because some of them have these big personalities, and I think giving them more comedic facial reactions would have helped a little.
One thing I do like is, from a visual storytelling perspective, is when the main characters are reading Hamlet, you actually get to see like how they actually get into character. And again, if this was more focused on the voice acting, then we probably would be seeing more of this. And like that sort of visual storytelling is like the reason why animation exists. You can kind of present how the industry works to like a younger audience, and they would be able to like comprehend it.
Yeah, I'm going to be very curious to see if they actually do dub this show at one point. I am wondering who they would get for all these characters. But otherwise, yeah, if you like more inside baseball kind of anime stuff, and who knows how actually accurate it is to the voice acting industry and such, like in Japan, yeah, I think check it out. I mean, granted, if you wanted to watch something like this, you have like a ton of different shows you can choose from. But I do think it was a bad idea to try to introduce all 16 characters at once.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So next up, we will talk about Slow Loop, which is based off of the manga by Maiki Uchino, directed by Noriaki Akitaya, written by Yuka Yamada, and produced by Connect. Since childhood, Hiyori Yamakawa has witnessed her father's various eccentricities, but one activity she has always loved doing with him is fly fishing, a complicated yet rewarding method of catching fish. Even after his sudden death, Hiyori still visits the seaside in her spare time, savoring the joy that her father's memento brings her. 3 years later, Hiyori's mother decides to remarry and arranges a dinner with her fiancé, his daughter, and Hiyori to celebrate. Anxious and wanting to pass the time, Hiyori goes to her usual fishing spot when a rather eccentric girl named Koharu Minagi suddenly appears before her. The two soon become acquainted, with Koharu taking an interest in fly fishing herself. However, their meeting is more than just a coincidence. Koharu turns out to be Hiyori's future step-sibling, which is only the beginning of treasured memories that both of them will reel in as they foster their sisterhood. They better stay sisters. That's what I'll get out of the way first. Do not make it more icky than just make them sisters. That's how you're going to keep this from getting creepy. But the show kind of, we'll get into it. Teresa, what did you think?
I thought it was cute. It was a slow loop. It took me a little bit to get into it. I thought the animation was beautiful and a really sweet story. It's a little dark at the beginning, but I think it's balanced out by Kaoru and the bubbliness of her, because they're basically both lost their parents and they have that in common. And they're just trying to find their way in their own way. And one sister's much better at fishing than the other, and trying to help one. I love the friend who's named Kaye, who doesn't want to talk about how she's named after a fish and isn't into fishing the way that our main character is. I do think that all three girls, are very like serious thinkers, and I wasn't really expecting that from like the opening scene of she's just sitting there fishing. Maybe I should have. Maybe that's what people get out of fishing. I am not. That is not my hobby. But I was interested. I like the kind of showing the flies and showing you how you do it and all the different kinds of casting and things like that. I thought that was cool. I think the cooking bits are a little making the tone a little bit off, but they're trying to give the sister a little bit of life. But I'm really mostly there for like the friendship between the sisters and Kaye and that trio. It really grew on me, and I love the camping episode. I thought it was adorable.
Yeah, this show is very adorable. Mike, what did you think?
This was nice. I think just from a visual aesthetic, it might have worked a little bit better in the fall, but that's neither here nor there. The show itself is just really sweet. I love the kind of laid back tone. I like that there is a bit of an educational aspect, since not everyone is like an expert when it comes to fishing or even like culinary arts. So it's kind of cool that this doubles as a little bit of education along with the slice of life. Thing about the sisters, though, I will give the show the benefit of the doubt only because maybe I've just seen too much anime, so certain visual cues like get me a little paranoid in terms of where the story could be heading. And if it doesn't go there, I will happily eat my words. But it is something at least that needs to be addressed, just so our audience is aware. But like other than that, like the actual bond that they share, have both of them having lost their parents, and that's how they kind of connect. I thought that was executed really well. I do think it is kind of funny how Kaye is so resistant to her name, but something else I like is that like the dynamic that she has with her father isn't just one-dimensional. Like they do have sort of an arc, and spending more time with our two main leads kind of like softens her up a bit. Other than that one potential problematic element, I can pretty comfortably recommend this one.
It's a very sweet show, and I love seeing a slice of life show that's about something different, because I know we have stuff like Non Biyori and Laid Back Camp, and it's like if you like those shows, you will probably like this show also. I just like it's a distinct anime about fishing. I don't think there are that many, or any of that I can recall, that are about just fishing. And they do take up a lot of time to talk about how fly fishing works and the different lures. And it's a little distracting that the reel and the rod that they use is CGI. So that it's just kind of interesting.
I was wondering why it was more shiny.
Yeah, but I do like they are building up the dynamic between our two characters and how they're now going to be sisters. Wasn't fond of the first joke that you see with the blonde one, who it's just like, I'm in my school swimsuit, I'm going to take a dive into the ocean. I was just like, oh, that's not a great way to introduce one of your characters. And then it's like, okay, wait a minute. How old are these characters? And they're high school characters, but their designs are, I guess they caught me off guard of how cutesy the designs are. But then when you get over that hurdle, I do like them bonding and how they're going to be good friends and close with one another, and they're going to be there for each other. Kaye is the scene stealer with her dad, and I'm glad that her dad has the crippling addiction of fishing. Like there could be a lot worse things in the world to be addicted to. And how she is just like no chill. She kind of despises, like not in a mean way, but like the dad is like, oh yeah, well don't worry, they'll set up the tents because then that'll give us more time for fishing. Like he'll try to weasel in just an additional minute of fishing.
He honestly kind of reminds me of my dad, who really likes skiing to the point where, I'll go with him once in a while, but any opportunity he has to go skiing, he will jump at the opportunity.
Yeah, it reminds me of that King of the Hill episode where Hank gets kind of like caught using I think it's cocaine as a fishing bait. And like he was having such a good time, and then like he gets back from fishing and he sits down to have lunch with the family. And then Bobby's just like, I was thinking about getting into acting. And he's like, well, going back to fishing. Bye. That's how Kaye's dad reminds me of that episode. And
I can see that.
yeah, but it's very cute. I do like this show. I was a little ready to write it off maybe because of how just low key it is. And that's something you have to be so careful about with slice of life shows. If you're a little too low key, you're just going to be an ASMR simulator.
There's a balance you need to strike between laid back and low energy.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I definitely recommend this one. I was happy that it turned out to be pretty good. I want to watch more different sports anime that don't disappoint me. I'm so ready for disappointment, apparently, because of last year with that one spring season where all of the sports anime were terrible except for Bakuden. All right, so our next one is called My Dress Up Darling, the second of the 3 Cloverworks anime that are in this season. It's based off of the manga by Shinichi Fukuda. It's directed by Keisuke Shinohara. It's written by Yoriko Tomita, and again, produced by Cloverworks. Traumatized by a childhood incident with a friend who took exception to his love of traditional dolls, doll artist and hopeful Wakana Goju passes his days as a loner, finding solace in the home ec room at his high school. To Wakana, people like beautiful Marine Kitagawa, a trendy girl who's always surrounded by a throng of friends, is practically an alien from another world. But when cheerful Marin, never one to be shy, spots Wakana sewing away one day after school, she barges in with the aim of roping her quiet classmates into her secret hobby, cosplay. Will Wakana's wounded heart be able to handle the invasion of this sexy alien? Well, I'll talk about that in a moment. But Teresa, what did you think about this show?
I'm not gonna lie, it had me in the first half. The panty whole episode measuring, though. I know it's her bathing suit, but it's like the skimpiest bathing suit I've ever seen.
Right.
I was like, no, why? Because it's less that she's even the nudity, it's more that it's making him uncomfortable. And she clearly sees, and she's like, whatever, do it. Measure my boobs. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And it got a little old in that particular episode, but I do love when they go shopping. The shopping montage is beautiful and adorable. And I love the like detail of the wig shop and all the different items. You can tell that they did their research in terms of the animation and the backgrounds for that. I just thought that was awesome. I like the story setup, and I like, that he's so, although I was like, literally no friends, like not even one sad other lonely kid, just nobody. So I was a little worried for him. But I like that he's making a friend. I like that she's so into it. I don't like that they had to pick like basically hentai like cosplay to do. And I feel like they did it just for that one joke when they're going by the ramen place and they're talking about what she's cosplaying as and being like really lewd in public. I feel like that's the only reason why they picked this. It could have been any, and almost so many animes have sexy outfits. I was like, why this one that she wants to cosplay? And it's like anime game. That was like a little bit confusing for me, but I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't know all the lingo in the cosplay world. I do want to keep watching it. I do want to keep giving it a chance. I thought the dub was awesome. I wish I could have watched all 3 episodes of the dub, but the first one was really cute. And, I really like the main characters. I want to see where they're going.
Yeah, I think that is, well, I'll get into it, but yeah, I agree with a lot of that. Mike, what did you think?
I also only watched the dub, so as of this recording, there are only 2 episodes. But if there's one major takeaway that, provided you're old enough, I can recommend this anime is like just the general theme of like follow your passions, and you shouldn't really be judged for what you love, no matter how weird or it might be. That's the reason I probably can't recommend this to like people underaged, because the specific examples of cosplay that Marin is into is and does kind of border on hentai. I think generally I love the dynamic that these two characters have. I like how just like unconditionally she trusts him with this project, even though he's only sewn clothes for like
Hina dolls.
So like that, and this is another great example of it's not really intended to be instructional, but this is a good representation of like how to form a real friendship just by sharing things that you may have in common. That's basically what this website is all about. So if you can get past the more lewd elements, then I can safely recommend this one.
I think what this show does well is destigmatize like people with very distinct hobbies. And this one, of course, a guy who's really into Hina doll making, or the popular girl being into anime and such, which it already kind of sounds like a very worn out trope of just like the shy, nerdy guy gets the hot, popular girl interested in him. But I do like that they do have very good chemistry with one another. Granted, she doesn't fully pay attention to what he's saying or take in that of his concerns and worries. I do love the fact that like when she pulls out this, like, we can look at this magazine for reference of what the materials we need are. And then they're starting to slowly read it. And then she's just like, oh no. Like she just realized like, oh gosh, he's going to think I'm a dimwit or something like that. And I thought that was very cute, and the animation is very good. It's Cloverworks, so it's got very expressive characters. But yeah, I think the cosplay aspect is going to divide people, and maybe it has already or maybe it hasn't. But the fact that she's like, the first cosplay I want to do for these first 4 episodes is this one character from an Eroge visual game. And it's just like, oh, so it just happened to be an erotic game with this character. Okay. Though I will say I did like the punchline when they're first together in the rec room and she's taking off her clothes and you think like, oh God, no. It's just like, no. And then it turns out it's just her cosplay outfit that she's working on. I thought that was a good little twist on the formula. I wish they kept doing that instead of doing the whole like, I'm going to wear the skimpiest bikini for measurements and such. Like I thought that part was like a little, I don't know, man, come on. It's like, it's too much like, oh, this is obviously, they're going to make statues of this character in this swimsuit. Oh. So it's like those parts really drag the show down, but I do like the characters and I like the story so far. And I like that it is about like, hey, just because they have very different hobbies from what they were, instead of having like a hobby that's normal to these two people and such, like the hot girl not being into nerdy stuff, and then she is, or the guy who's really into making Hina dolls instead of being like in the sports or music or whatever. Like, I like that kind of thing. I hope they can dive more into that, but I know they're going to encounter other cosplayers, and it kind of reminds me a little of Smile Down the Runway in some regards. I don't know if y'all ever saw that anime from 2 years ago. It's a real gem. I like it. It's on Funimation. It's nice to see a male who knows how to sew an anime, because it seems like you don't see that often. It's a very visually stunning show.
Yeah, I love the colors and all the outfits. It's making me want to cosplay. I was like, oh, this is a lot of work. I need my own guy to sew it if I would ever do it.
But it does. I did love like some of the comments you see online saying like, hey, if you're going to commission someone to make you a cosplay outfit, they're definitely going to need more than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And It's like, oh, that's the most unrealistic thing ever. No.
One thing I really like as far as the English dub casting is they got a VTuber to voice Marin. I don't know if you guys are familiar with
Oh, really?
Amanda Lee, or Emily
Oh.
as she's known.
Yeah, I've heard of her.
That's really like a smart casting choice where Funimation will actually cast someone who has at least some experience with the subject of the material.
I'm looking at what she's done, and she's actually done some voice acting before, but it's nice to see that they're starting to branch out and get different talent. Like, as we were recording this, they just announced on Tribe 9 they got a famed online creator, Corpse Husband, to be I think is the main villain of the show. And you look at the design, and if you know anything about who Corpse Husband is, it's like, oh, this is weirdly perfect timing. It's that kind of thing. And I do like My Dress Up Darling. I think if it kind of toned down its horniness a little, I would like it more. But I mean, I know it's like we kind of talk about from time to time how we're all just kind of like, oh, they do too much fan service. But again, I don't think anyone is overall against fan service as a whole. It's more just how it's executed. At least that's how it is to me.
Yeah, really, at the end of the day, your own mileage may vary.
But that's all I have to say about that. Sweet show, definitely recommend it. It's on Funimation and Crunchyroll. It's interesting to see some of these titles show up on more than one service, but hey, if that means more people can watch it, awesome.
Yeah.
So our final anime of the night, and probably my favorite anime of the season so far, is Sasaki and Miyano. It's a boy love anime, and our first one of the year. Hopefully we get to see more, because we only got one last year and it was not fun. So this one's based off of the manga and the novels by Sho Harusono. It's directed by Shinji Ishihara, written by Yoshiko Nakamura, and produced by Studio Dean. Now, I know when you hear Studio Dean, it doesn't always mean the best things in terms of animation quality, but just wait until we actually talk about the show. Yoshikazu Miyano's troubles first start one hot summer day when Shumei Sasaki steps into his life. Sasaki saves Miyano's classmate from a group of bullies, and after that, Miyano cannot seem to shake off his eccentric upperclassmen. His silent admiration for Sasaki gradually sours into annoyance each time the so-called delinquent refuses to leave him alone. Constantly being called by cute nicknames and having his boundaries ignored, Miyano wonders why Sasaki wants to get close to him. The shy and easily flustered Miyano harbors an embarrassing secret. He is a fundanshi, a boy who likes boy love manga. The last thing he wants is for other students to find out, but through a slip of the tongue, he reveals the truth to Sasaki. Intrigued, the clueless Sasaki asks to borrow a book to read, which he is given very reluctantly. To Miyano's surprise, Sasaki enjoys the boy love that he receives and asks for more, marking a shift in their strange dynamic. Although Sasaki appears to possess some personal agenda, his feelings for Miyano become complicated the more time they spend together. As they now share a common interest, their relationship is poised to change and further develop. This show is so freaking cute. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
This is what I wanted from a boy love manga, and just romance anime in general. Just something super sweet, very sincere, but it's still complex enough to make the drama of will they, won't they be interesting. Teresa, what did you think?
Yes, it's adorable. I love the little moments with the cat in the background and in the closing credits of it just kind of hanging out, and they're just slowly kind of being in the same, orbits, like their orbits of their school groups are kind of overlapping. And I love when they're like blushing. It's like the little triangles and circle kind of like fluttering out of their hearts. I just think that's beautiful. It's just a good way of showing it. I didn't know the terminology like BL and Fundashi. I had to get on the internet and do some glossary work. But once I did that, I was like, I get it. Oh, I get this. Especially when they were talking about whatever the girl version of Fundashi is, because that other classmate is like, yeah, my
girlfriend's also into boy love and I hate it. And I just thought that was really funny because it's not really kind of what they were setting that guy up to say. So it's all just sweet in the end. And I just love how they're both like, I think I might like it's just so not fully formed, but like budding. And they're like, how they can't really even admit it to themselves, even that it's not even really a gripe, but it just confuses me that they just keep saying senpai, like upperclassmen, lowerclassmen, and I was like, is that really a thing? But maybe it is the thing. I'm like, just use your beautiful name. But other than that, I just think it's adorable and it's my favorite.
Mike, what do you think?
So unfortunately, as of this recording, there's only one episode of the dub, but honestly, I think this might be probably the best pilot that I've seen all season, especially for those who are like kind of not fully versed into boy love, because like the main character, Miyano, is a fan. He gets to kind of break the fourth wall a little bit, kind of explain the tropes so that, they're all laid out right there. So you kind of have a rough idea of what to expect. And the reason that's perfect is because it lets the rest of the episode just kind of focus on developing our two titular protagonists / future love interests. The show kind of has it all. It's sweet, it's funny, like these characters all have like unique personalities. I'm not quite sure the relationship between, what's the blonde student's name? Hirano?
Taiga
The other
Hirano.
upperclassmen.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
I like how he's kind of like the sort of disgruntled sort of mentor of Miyano, who just like basically anytime Sasaki walks in, he just gives like the dirtiest look every time. So that dynamic is fun. And even just like the little quirks that they all have, like how Miyano is very intolerant to sweets, but like Sasaki is addicted to them, or just little touches like that like actually make these characters feel like people is something really refreshing and infectious. If you're even a little bit curious about this subgenre of, I guess, romance, then yes, you definitely need to check this one out.
So, fun fact: the director of this anime is Shinji Ishihara, and I said this at the beginning, but he directed like Talentless Nana and Moonlit Fantasy from a couple seasons ago. And it's very interesting to see how he tackles this show, because I don't think it's like the first time he's done boy love. He's done another one called Super Lovers back in 2016. So it's not like the first time he's ever touched this. But I like that they take their time with the romance between our two characters. They're not rushing. Like the only thing they rush is like the time period of the year that they are in. Like, because it's like now it's like it used to be fall and then now it's February or whenever Valentine's is in Japan or whenever they celebrate it.
Yeah, that was the one criticism I had, is that like the narrative was kind of jumping around a lot between flashbacks, and I maybe wish it was a little bit more linear. That's a minor nitpick in comparison.
I didn't really mind because they found ways to keep it cohesive and like you know what's going on and such. And I do love the different dynamics between the other characters. Yeah, like Taiga Hirano is just kind of like when Miyano's like, oh, hey, Sasaki, and Taiga's just like, what the hell are you doing in here? And then when we get introduced to Jiro Ogasawara, the one with the blue highlights, you think he's going to be kind of like the worst character ever, just with how he's mad. He's mad at those two. And he's like, so you're the Fundashi. It's like, oh, no. It's just like, explain this to me. It's like, my girlfriend loves this stuff. Am I supposed to hook up with a guy? And is that what she wants? And then,
Yes.
Like there's Tatsuke Kurosawa, who's like the guy with the glasses. And he's just kind of like, he's just taking everything in stride. Just like, huh. All right. And then there's of course like Masato Hanzawa, the one with the closed eyes and the smile and such. And I'm curious to see how they unfold with all these characters. they find a way to make it feel so pure. There's no like yaoi hands or one character's trying to be way more too aggressive for his own good. You don't get to see that in a lot of boy love like stories that I've seen, where it's always like there's that one super aggressive guy and then the one who's very submissive. They don't fall into those traps or those tropes or like elements. And I like that. Like Sasaki is a little more outgoing, but he's obviously cares a lot about Miyano and his interests and wants to be, be interested also and be friends. And of course, more as he starts to realize like, maybe I do have feelings for him or something like that. And it's just so sweet. And shockingly, it looks really good. And it's by Studio Dean. And unfortunately, Studio Dean does not have the best output. But I mean, not to say it's all bad, because they've done stuff like Higurashi. They've done Haven't You Heard on Sakamoto and the first 2 seasons of Konosuba. Like, they're kind of unfortunately known to having kind of like a rough and sometimes awkward look to their shows, but I do think they put in the resources and the time to get this one done. I just really love this show. It was one of the first ones I watched, so I'm kind of being biased as saying it's like one of my favorites. But yeah, I love romance stuff like this. It's going to be my Horimiya for the year, where I'm going to be like, every romance and rom-com anime has to be as good as this one.
That's a very respectable standard,
because that really helped me pan out like why I like romance anime and such, because I was just like, yeah, Horimiya was great, and then we had like Koikimo, which was hot garbage, or that other one which was just like, man, this one just went off the rails fast. And then of course then there was Nagatoro-kun, and it was like, oh yeah, I like that one. So yeah, that'll be it. We covered the fantasy isekai and the slice of life anime of the season. So if you had to pick 3 shows, what would you choose? Teresa, you go first.
Yeah, that's actually pretty easy. I would say obviously Sasagi Miyano, Slow Loop, and Miss Koreitsu and her monsters. Those are my 3.
Alrighty, Mike, what do you think? What would your top 3 so far be?
So far, my top 3 would be Sasaki and the Genius Prince's Guide to Raising a Nation Out of Debt, and Miss Kuroitsu from the Monster Development Department.
This is tough. I like at least 5 anime from this batch of shows. Yeah, I have to go with Sasaki and Miyano. I think my second one would have to be Miss Koreitsu of the Monster Development Department. And then I think my third would be Life with an Ordinary Guy Who Reincarnated into a Total Fantasy Knockout. Just those are the 3 that I've had the most fun with. They were the ones who had like the least amount of pushback for me to get into. And honorable mentions would go to like the Genius Prince's Guide and Slow Loop and My Dress Up Darling.
Yeah, I was like, if it didn't have some questionable nudity, Dress Up Darling would be in there for me, but
same.
It's like what we talked about with Miyuroko-chan last season, where we're just like,
stop
being so flippant horny and just focus on the comedy and the horror aspect. Here it's just like and here it's just like, tone down on the horny and then you're good.
Be sweet like Sasaki and Miyano, and
like,
you'd be fine.
I mean, like, if we wanted to watch like a just unapologetically horny show, we'd be talking about World's End Harem, and we're not going to talk about that because that show is basically porn. Though if you've seen online all of the extreme ways of censorship that the broadcast versions are going through, it's quite amazing how hilarious it is. It's like, you're supposed to be a fan service show, but the censorship stuff is so extreme, you might as well just wait and release this on a Blu-ray. Like, you destroy your own purpose as a show.
Pretty much.
But yeah, next time we'll be talking about the sports and action adventure categories. As always, if you don't hear us talk about one anime during part 1, it's probably going to show up in part 2.
Until next time, Teresa, where can everyone find you online?
They can find me at Teresa Electro on all social platforms, and let me know what you think of the new season of the anime.
And Cameron?
You can find me on Twitter at Cam's Eye View. I have my own website on camseyeview.biz where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview if you like my work and want to support me in some way, shape, or form. Of course, like my work and follow me on there and on Twitter. And if you want to support me through Patreon, if you want.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at CaptainK42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us at Podchaser. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, etc. If you like what we do, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a rating, do all that good stuff. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.